This is a city that defies logic, a sprawling metropolis built on a high-altitude lakebed surrounded by volcanoes. By all accounts, it should not exist. Welcome to Mexico City, one of the largest urban centers on the planet, where nearly 22 million people live, work, and dream. A vibrant, chaotic, and endlessly fascinating human experiment. But look closer. Beneath the breathtaking scale and relentless energy, a profound and paradoxical crisis is unfolding. The city is simultaneously drowning in floods and dying of thirst. The evidence of this struggle is etched into the very fabric of the city. Grand historical monuments, once standing proud and tall, now sink into the soft, unstable earth. This is not a metaphor. Mexico City is literally sinking. In some areas, by as much as 30 centimeters every single year, a rate unmatched by any other megacity on Earth. How can one of the world's great megacities continue to function while its very foundations crumble away beneath it? The answer is a hidden story of immense ingenuity and survival against all odds, a daily battle waged by engineers and citizens alike, deep beneath the surface. To truly comprehend Mexico City, one must first grasp a central paradox so profound it borders on the absurd. It is a story of water, a story of its presence and its absence, played out on a scale that is almost geological in its scope. Here, nestled at an altitude of over 2,000 meters, lies a megalopolis of more than 22 million people, contained within a vast high-altitude basin. This is the Valley of Mexico, a colossal bowl rimmed by volcanoes, with almost no natural way for water to escape. For millennia, rainfall and snowmelt from these surrounding mountains collected on the valley floor, forming a magnificent system of interconnected lakes. The city that stands here today is a direct descendant of that water world, yet it finds itself locked in a seemingly unwinnable war against its own geography. Every year, as the rainy season arrives, this ancient memory of water reasserts itself with terrifying force. The skies open, and the city's concrete and asphalt skin proves to be an impermeable seal. With nowhere to go, the water pools, transforming streets into canals and threatening to drown the sprawling urban expanse. The city's massive yet overwhelmed drainage systems struggle to expel the deluge, a frantic modern-day effort to do what the valley itself cannot: drain. Yet, in a cruel twist of irony, at the very same time that parts of the city are battling floods, Mexico City is dying of thirst. The immense population requires a colossal amount of fresh water every single day, billions of liters to sustain homes, industries, and life itself. In many neighborhoods, taps run dry for weeks, even months on end, forcing residents to rely on expensive private water trucks, or pipas. It is a daily struggle for a resource that, paradoxically, is also trying to reclaim the very ground beneath their feet. To quench this insatiable thirst, the city has drilled thousands of wells deep into the earth, tapping the vast aquifer that lies beneath the ancient lakebed. But this is not a solid rock aquifer. It is a thick deposit of water-saturated clay and silt, the very foundation upon which the city rests. As the pumps relentlessly draw out the water, these clay layers compact and shrink, like a giant sponge being wrung dry. The result is a phenomenon known as subsidence. The ground itself is collapsing, and the entire city is sinking. This slow-motion sinking wreaks havoc on the city's vital organs. The ground shifts and fractures, placing unbearable stress on the aging water infrastructure buried within it. Pipes, some decades old, are bent and broken. This creates a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. It is estimated that up to a staggering 40% of the city's precious drinking water is lost to leaks before it ever reaches a tap. This colossal loss forces the water authorities to drill even deeper and pump even more water from the aquifer to compensate. This in turn accelerates the sinking, which breaks more pipes, creating an ever-worsening crisis spiraling out of control. To understand how this modern catastrophe came to be, we have to rewind the clock, back to a time when this valley was not a problem to be solved, but a paradise. For thousands of years, this unique hydrological system created a thriving lacustrine world, a landscape of immense biodiversity and abundance. And at its center, a remarkable civilization arose, one that understood the water not as an obstacle, but as the very source of its strength. This was Tenochtitlan, the heart of the Aztec Empire. Founded in 1325 on a small island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, it grew into one of the largest and most sophisticated cities in the world. The Aztecs didn't fight the water. They wove their city into its very fabric, creating a metropolis that was part land, part water, a Mesoamerican Venice. Perhaps their most brilliant innovation was the chinampa. These were not merely floating gardens, but a highly advanced and sustainable form of agriculture. By layering mud from the lakebed with decaying vegetation, the Aztecs built incredibly fertile rectangular islands, anchored to the shallow lake floor by willow trees. These chinampas could produce up to 7 harvests a year, creating a food surplus that fed a massive population of over 200,000 people, far more than could have been sustained by farming the surrounding hillsides. The Aztecs were master hydraulic engineers. They built monumental dikes, like the Great Dike of Nezahualcóyotl, a 16-kilometer-long barrier that separated the salty waters of Lake Texcoco from the freshwater springs feeding the southern lakes, protecting their chinampas and ensuring a clean water supply. They constructed aqueducts to bring fresh water from springs on the mainland directly into the city center for drinking and cleaning. They had created a stable, sustainable, and truly awe-inspiring urban ecosystem. But this water world, a marvel of indigenous engineering and harmony with nature, was about to face an enemy with a completely different philosophy. In 1519, the Spanish conquistadors, led by Hernán Cortés, arrived in the valley. They were soldiers from a dry land, a culture that saw nature as something to be conquered and controlled. The lake that was Tenochtitlan's greatest asset also became its greatest vulnerability. To defeat the Aztecs, the Spanish laid siege to the city, blockading the causeways and using their own fleet of ships to attack from the water. They systematically dismantled the city's relationship with the lake, destroying the aqueducts and cutting off the flow of fresh water. Their approach was not one of adaptation, but of total domination. After a brutal siege that left the city in ruins, the Spanish made a fateful decision, one that would seal the city's destiny for the next 500 years. Against the advice of some of his own men, who suggested building on the nearby mainland, Cortés insisted on building his new capital, Mexico City, directly on top of the ruins of Tenochtitlan. It was a symbolic act of conquest, planting a European city squarely on the heart of the vanquished empire. Almost immediately, the Spanish ran into the problem the Aztecs had so expertly managed: the water. The seasonal flooding, which the Aztecs had controlled with their dikes and canals, was an intolerable nuisance to the Spanish and their vision of a dry, orderly European city. They saw the lakes not as a life-giving resource, but as a mortal enemy to be vanquished. And so began a monumental, centuries-long engineering project with a single obsessive goal: to drain the entire Valley of Mexico. Generation after generation they dug. They carved massive canals, like the Nochistongo Cut, and later drilled colossal tunnels through the surrounding mountains, Herculean efforts to create the outlet that nature had not provided. By the mid-20th century, the mission was, from an engineering perspective, largely complete. The Great Lakes that had defined this land for millennia were gone, replaced by a dusty, salt-crusted plain. The Spanish, and their Mexican successors, had won their war against the water. They had conquered the lake. But in draining the water from the surface, they had set in motion a far more insidious and dangerous problem from below. The ghost of the lake was about to take its revenge. To truly understand the precarious state of Mexico City, one must learn to see the invisible forces at play. The most dramatic evidence of this silent collapse is etched into the city's most iconic structures. When the Angel of Independence was inaugurated in 1910, it stood at street level. Today, visitors must descend a flight of 23 stone steps to reach its original base. the angel hasn't risen, the city has fallen away from it, sinking at an astonishing rate of nearly 9 meters in just over a century. Each added step is a permanent, chiseled reminder of a city in a slow, relentless state of descent, a monument not only to independence, but to a profound geological crisis. Nowhere is this struggle more apparent than at the Metropolitan Cathedral. As the symbolic heart of the city, it was unfortunately constructed on the softest, most unstable part of the ancient lakebed, the site of a former Aztec temple. For centuries, it sank, but it sank unevenly. The western towers and central nave plunged faster than the eastern side, creating immense structural stress that threatened to tear the magnificent building apart. By the late 1980s, the differential was so severe that a complete collapse was deemed imminent. In a monumental feat of engineering, a team of specialists undertook a decade-long project to save it. They didn't attempt to lift the cathedral, but to control its fall. By carefully drilling shafts and removing small, precise amounts of clay from beneath the higher, slower sinking side, they gently coaxed it to settle more evenly, stabilizing the structure for the foreseeable future. It was a breathtakingly delicate operation, a surgical intervention on an architectural giant. This uneven sinking, known as differential subsidence, creates a warped, almost surreal landscape across the city. It's a world where straight lines become curves and level ground is a distant memory. Buildings slowly tilt, pulling away from their neighbors, creating fissures in walls and foundations. Doors and windows jam in their frames. Sidewalks buckle and heave, turning a simple walk into a negotiation with the unstable ground beneath. For the millions who live here, this has become a bizarre fact of life, a constant disorienting reminder that the ground beneath their feet is not solid but fluid and unpredictable. But the most dangerous and costly consequences of this subsidence are hidden from view, buried deep underground. Beneath the tilting streets lies a vast and complex circulatory system of pipes and cables, the city's lifeline. This critical infrastructure, carrying fresh water, gas, electricity, and carrying away sewage and storm runoff, was built with the assumption of stable ground. Now it is being torn apart. As the ground subsides at different rates, the rigid pipes of the water network are stretched, bent, and subjected to immense shear forces until they inevitably break. The result is a network in a constant state of hemorrhage. It's estimated that a staggering 40% of the city's fresh potable water that has been pumped over mountains at enormous expense, is lost to leaks before it ever reaches a tap. This loss is not just an engineering failure. In a region plagued by water scarcity, it is a profound tragedy. The damage to the city's drainage and sewage network is just as severe, and perhaps even more dangerous. This system relies entirely on a simple, ancient principle: gravity. Pipes are laid at a precise, gentle angle to allow wastewater to flow downhill, away from homes and businesses. But as the ground sinks, these carefully calculated gradients are destroyed. Pipes that were once angled to allow gravity to pull water away now sag in the middle, or even slope the wrong way entirely. This creates chronic blockages and catastrophic backups. During the city's intense rainy season, the crippled system is quickly overwhelmed. Instead of draining water away, the manholes become geysers, spewing a toxic mixture of rainwater and raw sewage back onto the streets and into people's homes. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a severe and recurring public health risk, exposing entire neighborhoods to waterborne diseases and turning a natural event like rainfall into a man-made disaster. The sinking city is, in effect, poisoning itself from below. The relentless sinking of Mexico City is a direct consequence of its thirst. For centuries, the city has drawn its lifeblood from the vast aquifer beneath its feet. But this subterranean reservoir, once thought to be inexhaustible, is now a shadow of its former self, dangerously depleted from decades of over-extraction. The city has been drinking its own foundation, and the consequences are written in the fractured landscape. With its local water source dwindling and the ground beneath it failing, the metropolis found itself trapped. Encased by a formidable ring of mountains, it had no choice but to engineer a solution of almost unimaginable scale: looking far beyond its geological prison to quench a thirst that was becoming an existential threat. The answer was the Sistema Cutzamala, a monumental feat of hydraulic engineering conceived in the mid-20th century and expanded over decades. It is one of the largest and most complex water transfer projects anywhere in the world. The system doesn't draw from a single source, but rather a network of 7 reservoirs spread across the Cutzamala and Lerma River basins, more than 150 kilometers to the west. Here, in a different watershed, water is collected, stored, and treated before it begins its epic journey. It is, in essence, an artificial river, meticulously constructed from concrete and steel, but with one crucial difference from any natural waterway. This river flows uphill. To get the water from the reservoirs to the city, it must first conquer the Sierra de las Cruces mountains. This requires lifting it over 1,100 meters in vertical elevation, a height more than twice that of the Empire State Building. This colossal task is achieved not by one, but by a chain of 6 massive pumping stations, each a behemoth of industrial power. Station by station, the water is forced against gravity, pushed relentlessly upward through enormous steel pipes. It's a constant, brute force battle against topography, a testament to the sheer will required to sustain a city in such a challenging location. The energy required to power this vertical river is staggering. The electricity needed to run the Cutzamala pumps is equivalent to the entire power consumption of a city like Puebla, home to 1.5 million people. This makes the system not only one of Mexico's single largest consumers of electricity, but also makes the city's water supply incredibly expensive and carbon-intensive. Every glass of water that arrives in Mexico City via this route carries with it an enormous hidden cost, both financially and environmentally, a constant reminder of the city's precarious dependence on this single, aging lifeline. After conquering the mountain peak, the water's journey is far from over. Gravity finally becomes an ally as the water begins its descent toward the valley floor. It travels the final 75 kilometers through a complex network of open-air aqueducts, deep subterranean tunnels, and covered canals, the city's hidden rivers, flowing silently beneath the urban chaos. This intricate vascular system delivers roughly a quarter of the metropolitan area's water, a vital infusion for the thirsty metropolis. But this solution, born of necessity, has created a paradox. While the city imports water at great expense, the very ground it is built on presents an entirely different and perhaps even more terrifying threat. As if the challenges of water and subsidence weren't enough, the geology of the Valley of Mexico creates another deadly hazard. The soft, water-saturated clay of the ancient lakebed, the same material that compacts and causes the city to sink, also turns the entire basin into a gigantic amplifier for earthquakes. When seismic waves from distant tectonic plates arrive, they slow down and grow dramatically in amplitude as they pass through this soft medium, much like a tsunami wave builds as it reaches a shallow shore. This phenomenon, known as lakebed amplification, means that a moderate earthquake far away can become a catastrophic event within the city limits. The world witnessed the horrific power of this effect on September 19, 1985. A magnitude 8.0 earthquake struck off the Pacific coast, over 350 kilometers away. In other locations, it was felt strongly, but in Mexico City, it was apocalyptic. The ground resonated at a frequency that was particularly destructive to buildings between 5 and 15 stories tall. The soft ground shook like jelly for more than 2 minutes, causing hundreds of these buildings to sway uncontrollably, their resonant frequencies matching the ground's motion, until their structural integrity failed completely and they collapsed into dust and rubble. The 1985 earthquake was a brutal, devastating lesson in the physics of geology. In the wake of the disaster, Mexico City was forced to become a world leader in seismic engineering. In response to the tragedy, the city implemented some of the most stringent and advanced building codes on the planet. A new generation of skyscrapers, like the iconic Torre Mayor, were designed not just to withstand shaking, but to actively counteract it. The key is a remarkable piece of engineering known as a tuned mass damper. These are not just passive reinforcements, they are dynamic systems designed to fight back against the earthquake's power. Housed near the top of the skyscraper, the tuned mass damper is essentially a giant pendulum, a massive weight suspended on cables and controlled by hydraulic pistons. Its design is precisely calibrated, or tuned, to the natural resonant frequency of the building itself. When an earthquake begins to shake the structure, causing it to sway, the building's movement is transferred to the pendulum. The massive weight then begins to swing in the opposite direction, perfectly out of phase with the building's sway. By pushing back against the motion, the damper effectively cancels out the resonant vibrations, dissipating the seismic energy and protecting the building's structural integrity. It is a dance of physics, a precisely engineered countermotion that keeps the giants of the skyline standing. The challenge of motion is a daily battle for millions. The city's public transportation systems are a marvel of adaptive engineering, constantly fighting the unstable, sinking terrain. Every journey is a small victory against geology. This is a war of inches, fought every single night. Maintenance crews work tirelessly, shimming and regrading the rails to compensate for the ground's relentless, uneven movement. It is a Sisyphean task that ensures the city can wake up and move again the next day. The future will demand solutions even more audacious, moving beyond mere survival. These new projects represent a crucial shift in thinking, from a history of extraction to a future of restoration, aiming to finally heal the city's relationship with water. But to focus only on the engineering problems is to miss the most incredible part of the story. For centuries, this city has been a battleground between human ambition and a hostile environment. By all logic, Mexico City should not exist. It should have disappeared centuries ago, reclaimed by the water and the mud. Instead, it grew into one of humanity's greatest, most improbable urban achievements, a testament to sheer, stubborn persistence. Not because nature allowed it, but because millions of people, generation after generation, refused to surrender to it. They built their world on a memory of a lake, and in doing so, created a monument to resilience itself.